Welcome to Exploitation Reviews, and me, Rob. If you've watched my channel at all, you've probably figured out that I'm a pretty big fan of revenge films. And today I'm taking a look at one of the best and more unique entries in that genre, Abel Ferrara's Ms. 45. Zoë Lund stars as the mute seamstress Thana. In Greek mythology, the personification of death is called Thanatos. And yeah, by the end of this movie, our Thana will live up to her namesake. One day after grocery shopping, Thana is pulled into an alley and raped by a masked assailant. That's director Abel Ferrara, by the way. After the attack, she picks herself up and makes her way home. In the cruelest twist of fate, her home is currently being burgled. Robbed? No, I didn't have anything to do with this. The burglar doesn't take too kindly to the interruption, so he rapes her. Again. But this time goes a bit differently. Thana grabs a glass apple, symbolism? Maybe? Symbolism? And bashes him in the head. While he's writhing on the floor, she picks up an iron. And well, that's a much more effective weapon. After 2 rapes in one day, a home invasion, and a bashing of a man's head in, Thana's not thinking clearly. I mean, who would be? She drags the man into her bathroom and cuts him into pieces. Okay, well, that's not what I would have done, but I share my bathroom with the rest of my family. Thana lives alone. Different living situations, different decisions. Her plan is to store the pieces in her refrigerator, and when she goes out, she'll drop one off, spreading him around the city. One day, she drops off a piece, and a man picks it up and tries to return it to her, probably as an excuse to hit on her. And Thana, in a panicked state, shoots him in the face. And from here on out, her mental state is shaky at best, and she transforms herself from prey to predator. She starts actively going out to look for men to murder. And she works in the fashion industry, so she knows exactly the kind of clothing she needs to wear to attract the kinds of men she doesn't want to share the planet with.
This is the place. Come on, you're gonna love it. Wait till you see. Didn't I tell you to trust me? I mean, isn't this a beautiful place?
And some of her victims have it coming, but others don't. Unlike the typical rape revenge movie, the morality in Ms. 45 is muddled. But that's because this isn't really a rape revenge movie. In a typical rape revenge movie, we have a protagonist that we identify with. Normally it's a woman, but not always. The protagonist is raped, recovers, and then sets out to get a little bit of revenge, more than a little bit of revenge, against the assailants. The morality in these films is quite straightforward and easily digestible. We have a protagonist and a horrible thing happens to her, and then she makes the bad guys pay in horrible, and therefore for us, satisfying ways. That's not Ms. 45. Ms. 45 shares much more in common with pure vigilante films like Death Wish. But it's muddier than Death Wish, too. Both rape revenge films and vigilante films more broadly are about a failing or failed society. In these films, institutions fail to protect citizens, and when they become victims, those citizens, knowing that the system has failed, decide to extract justice themselves, either by punishing their own attackers, like in the rape revenge movies, or generalizing the attack and punishing any random criminal, like in vigilante films. Oh, and as a little aside, I find it particularly crazy that American cops have adopted the Punisher logo. I mean, aside from the fact they aren't supposed to be punishers at all, that's a job for judges after a fair trial. The Punisher is a vigilante killer. He only exists because cops suck at their job and have failed society. American cops were a symbol of their own failings, and they're too stupid to realize it. Anyway, back to Miss 45. It's a vigilante film, but not a pure vigilante film. It's a vigilante film that points out a problem with vigilantism. Vigilantism? How do you say that word? Vigilantism. Let's say that. Thana's mental break and descent into homicidal mania shows that individuals can't be trusted as arbiters of justice. We need institutions as a bulwark against individual madness. And when those institutions fail, given that individuals can't be trusted, we're in a very dark place. This film ends up being pretty nihilistic. So let's talk some highlights. Zoë Lund is perfect in this role. How she processes her trauma and then transforms herself from meek, innocent seamstress to sexy, psychotic murderess is an impressive piece of acting. And she pulls it off without a single line of dialogue. Pretty cool. And this ties into a larger highlight of the film. There are longer sequences here with very little to no dialogue, and the film never drags. It's engaging and tense all the way through. This is a well-directed movie. And a well-photographed movie. New York looks gritty and dangerous. And placing the gorgeous Zoë Lund in that setting, that's effective. But the film isn't perfect. Actually, I don't want to make a shortcomings joke about this movie, so let's just go on. My only complaint about the movie isn't about the movie, but more about myself. Somehow, before I watched the movie, I thought it was going to be a more traditional rape revenge story or vigilante story, and when it wasn't, I was a bit thrown off. Because of this, the first time I watched it, I didn't really like it. I didn't understand it. But after watching it and thinking about it and watching it a few more times, I've come to really appreciate it. But maybe I had the wrong impression because of a misleading trailer or blurb, in which case, the movie has some blame, or at least, that part has some blame. And if you've watched this review to this point, you have a better idea about what's really going on in the film than I did the first time I watched it, so maybe you'll appreciate it the first time. And I'm sure you're not surprised, but on my IT scale, I say buy it. This is a fascinating movie and well worth watching more than once. In fact, you should watch it more than once. Do you have a favorite revenge or vigilante film? Let me know in the comments.
Hey, dude, you want to sit on my face?
Fuck off.